I'm Claire Parker.
And I'm Ashley Hamilton. And this is Celebrity Memoir Book Club, the podcast where we take books that are crazy and we say, who made them this way and why? And if you don't like it, if you say, this is making me crazy, stop listening. There's no reason for you to go crazy here. This is just a podcast. My God. That's all I have to say up top. Claire, what's going on?
This is one of your last chances to get tickets to our shows in Ohio, in Fort Lauderdale, in Tampa, and in Charlotte, the rescheduled Charlotte show. Thank you so much to everyone who came out to our Austin show. It was so fun. We had such a great time. Thank you to Moon Tower.
And in case you did not make it in time to watch our digital show with Moment, it will be replayed for 3 weeks. So even if you didn't catch it live, you can still watch it. And I think it's going to be really fun.
Yeah.
And the merch that sold out almost immediately, the Idiot from Hell hat and tank, they are both back in stock. So if I were you, I would dive on that, because if I were a betting man, I'd say they'll sell out again.
Yeah. And if you were like, I would do anything to make sure I got an Idiot from Hell tank or hat, the best way to guarantee you will get some is by joining the Patreon, where we will be releasing it a day early.
Totally. Claire, if you were to write a memoir, what's a little tidbit from last week's chapter?
Party girl.
Ooh.
I'm a party girl.
Oh my God.
And you can confirm. You guys may not know this, but I'm one of the sleepiest people on the planet. I need a good 12, 14, 17 hours sometimes a day of snoozing just to have, a couple of good hours of riffing in me. I don't know what I'm tired from. It might be a major iron deficiency, but but my whole life have been like, well, it's 10:30 p.m. I can't imagine anything's happening here. I better go home now.
And I just want to clarify that she means not 10:30 on a regular day, which is like a very reasonable time to go to sleep on a regular day. She's talking about like at a party that hasn't started yet.
That's not true. I always get to parties right when they start. So if a party started at 10, by 10:30, I've talked to everyone there because it's mostly just me and the host. And I go, well, time to call it a night. This year is my year of partying. This is the best summer of my life. I'm going to drink a lot. Not a lot of people say I'm going to this summer trying to have a lot of drugs and drinking in my veins. I'm all fucked up. My brain's scrambled. But I'm doing it. And last weekend, I really committed. I was out late every night. The first night, Ashley made me go home early.
Yeah, I will say I don't regret a second of that.
No, but then the next 2 nights, I was out till shutdown.
I also want to clarify that early was 1:30.
And then on Saturday, I flew in and I went straight to another birthday party. I'm saying yes. If you invite me, I'm coming. If you buy a drink, I'm drinking. It's the summer of my life, baby. And I'm so excited. We're going to do a bucket list on the Patreon this week, or maybe we did it last week, but I've got a big old bucket summer list.
Yeah, this summer is hot in a bucket.
Can I say the fact that I'm like, I'm going to fuck up my brain this week and I've already messed up 6 or 7 very common phrases. I'm like, okay, maybe this is the year the podcast dies. But we'll see. Pray for me and pray for you guys if you're avid listeners. Ashley, what about you? Oh, wait, can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
I had so much fun the first 2 nights we went out. And then the third night, I had no fun at all. And I like that.
Yeah.
I think it's good to go too long. I think it's great to have so much fun and then wait till it spoils, because it kind of makes you go, okay, I got there. You know what I mean? You want to hit oil, you want to drill for oil, and then you want to keep kind of going to make sure you didn't leave any down there.
Yes.
I'm a proponent of staying too long.
I frack your heart out, baby.
Ashley.
Yeah.
If you were to put something in your memoir from this week.
No, I'm a proponent of staying too long. I feel like that's always been my MO. And then I started going home earlier, just as the party's getting fun. And I said, that's exactly when you want to bow out.
Can I say, but exactly, that's why you have to stay too long, because now you know that. I don't know that.
Oh.
I've been living my whole life like I have no idea what happens after midnight.
Oh.
There's that Chapel Rowan song, After Midnight, and I'm just now about to find out. And I think that's why at some point in your life you have to stay till it gets bad so that you can always leave knowing when the right like you have to learn it. I feel like I'm learning hard lessons that a lot of people learned at 19. 31, it's never too late.
I agree. Okay, my week, I would say I might have to go full vegetarian soon, because I've been trying to eat really healthy because we went out last weekend a lot and I still can't even really talk. So I was like, this week is going to be so healthy. No one's going to even know what hit them. And so I got some fishes to cook for myself. And I'll tell you what, cooking fish in your apartment, it stinks.
I have heard that famously. Something nobody ever talks about, and I will not name names here, but the idea of microwaving fish, that you could get famous doing that was... There were casualties.
I didn't even microwave it. I knew microwaving fish is a little stinky. And then I said, well, cook it proper. And I'll tell you what, cooking proper bakes it into the fucking walls. My house is like a fish den. I can't even walk in there. And then you don't really notice it after a little while. And then I leave to take Bug on a walk and I come back and I'm just like hit with a fisherman smell. And now I'm paranoid that I smell like fish. Like, do I smell gross and fishy? Because when I'm in my house, I don't even notice how fishy it smells anymore because I'm just like seeped in fish. I can't live like this any longer.
You need a grill. You need an outdoor grill.
Oh, is that how they do it?
That's how you should do it. Should I get you a grill for your birthday?
Maybe.
A little charcoal grill. That could be kind of fun.
It could be kind of fun.
And it takes 5 minutes.
To grill?
Kind of, yeah.
Wow.
It's easier than anything.
Wow. Well, maybe I'll consider it. Maybe I'll get a little George Foreman.
That's not going to fix the problem. You've kind of missed the point. But moving on.
Should we get into this week's book? Speaking of something fishy.
Now there's a transition. Are you a professional? You should do this for a living.
This week, we are reading Kristen Doute's memoir / how-to book, He's Making You Crazy, How to Get the Guy, Get Even, and Get Over It. So this is not a how-to book in any way. It's just a book about her dating history specifically, which for a while throughout this book, I was thinking, well, I guess that makes the most sense because I don't think her life exists outside of romantic relationships. I think that like a memoir of her life would have been this exact book, except there are a handful of parts where I said, I would love to know how you got here. I would love to know 1 or 2 other details from your life from like age 7 where I could understand how you're like this.
Okay, we've known about this book for a while. And I've been like, I'm not going to read fucking Kristen Doute's book because first of all,
it smells like duty.
Duty, do don't. You know what I mean? That's a do don't. I've been watching Vanderpump Rules for the Patreon where we've been recapping it.
And The Valley.
And I have just been like, actually, you're exactly who I want a memoir from because how did you end up like this? I'm desperate to know what could have happened. If somebody said that she was like fully abducted by aliens as a child, I would have been like, yeah, checks out. Something so bad happened to her that no one else on the planet can relate to. Unfortunately, all we get is evidence that she is like just as crazy as you thought. This is such a weird book because most memoirs, they're like, see, I'm not that bad. And you walk away from this book going, wow, I couldn't have fathomed. I couldn't have fathomed that Vanderpump Rules gave her like the hero edit. So for those of you who don't know, Kristen Doute is one of the crazier members of Vanderpump Rules. She is now on The Valley.
She was a regular on Vanderpump Rules, part of the founding cast from season 1 to I think 7.
She was actually Tom Sandoval's original Mark.
Yeah.
Of Scandoval fame.
Exactly.
A lot of this book is about how she wished Ariana could just one day understand how painful it is to have Tom Sandoval cheat on you. And I would like to go back and say, Kristen,
you're a witch.
You're too powerful.
The Witches of WeHo.
She's a witch. She's an empath. She is dumb as dirt. This book, interestingly enough, was co-written by Michelle Alexander, who was the co-author of How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, the hilarious guidebook that became the basis of the hit movie starring Kate Hudson and Matthew McConaughey. And that was one of those sentences where I was like, she wrote How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. And then I was like,
oh no, she coded it.
No. And like, she didn't even write the movie. She wrote the book.
Yeah.
That's nothing.
Especially as a co.
She half did the idea.
Something I hope we can do someday.
I would love for you and me to write like a friendship book about all the ways to ruin a friendship.
Exactly.
And how we survived them.
Okay, so this book starts out with an introduction, the dreaded C word, which is crazy. We weren't born crazy, we were made crazy. It's true, and I have plenty of stories to prove it. My turbulent dating history has brought me an abundance of peaks and valleys, but I didn't get there on my own. Crazy is a 2-person job. We start out innocent, glowing little girls full of sugar and spice and everything nice. Boys are gross because they're our buddies until one day they're not so gross anymore. And then we're doodling hearts in our notebooks, adding their last name to ours. We always think the first guy we date is the one we're going to marry. Hell, we think every guy we date is the one we're going to marry. I'm on page 1. This is the start of when she starts making these sweeping generalizations where I go, stop saying we.
A couple times she's like, we all do it. And if there was 25 hours in the day, we'd be doing it 25. And I was like, don't
loop me in like this.
We are not
bitch.
the same. You have to have your own letter on the LGBTQIA plus spectrum because I don't think we have the same sexuality.
I have never once dated someone that I thought I was going to marry.
We are not the same. She also says, probably contrary to popular belief, I take full responsibility for my life. I'm here to poke a little fun at myself and more important at all these guys who were dismissive of my feelings, downplayed everything they had ever done, made me feel ridiculous for being upset, and accused me of being too dramatic. We've all been through it, and some of my stories are definitely yours too. It is so interesting to be like, this is the book where I'm taking responsibility for who I am. And it's also about how every man made me this way.
Yeah.
This is the book where I take responsibility for the fact that people have forced me to be crazy. She also says, guys, this book is also for you. I'm not going to go psycho because you call me crazy. I'm here to own my crazy and to gently explain to you why it's mostly your fault. Deep down, you love crazy bitches. Oh, God, Kristen, if you had a lick of evidence of a successful relationship, I'd say maybe.
Oh my God, it's so hard to read this book, especially knowing where she is now on the valley, like for the first time in a relationship with a man who acknowledges that she exists. And barely.
But won't move to the state with her. I don't know. We talk about it on the Patreon. We've been recapping The Valley. I did not want to watch The Valley. Unfortunately, I am sucked in because they seem to have figured out the reality TV paradox of how do we acknowledge that all these people know how to play the game? And like, I think they've done it well. We get into it there, but damn, I hate that I'm in it.
Me too.
Part 1, Killing My Innocence.
Chapter 1, A View from the Top.
Let's start here. I was born tall. So she was 5'9" at age 13, which as somebody who was despised by my co-ed soccer companions' fathers for being that big girl, that girl who's too big, I do know the trauma that can come along with going through puberty early. It is hard to be bigger than like every boy your age because dads hate it when you beat the shit out of their sons in sports. One of my earliest memories is like doing the monkey bars at a park and some kid's dad being like, she's doing it. Why can't you do it? That's a girl. Like, I was just so big. They'd say, how old's that big girl? She's too big. Get that big girl off the field. I say, no, it's not my fault. I'd go running down the soccer field. The little boys would just bounce off me. They go, she's from another country. Her passport's a lie. I was like Alice in Wonderland, just crying like it's not my fault. I drink so much milk.
Oh, if that's not an argument against milk, I don't know what is. In middle school, the battle of the sexes is extremely lopsided. Girls run the world and boys are scared of us. They're just beginning to like us and they don't know what to do about it. At that age, for a brief moment, we hold all the cards. Just a tiny hint of boobs gives us major power. What world is she talking about?
Could you point to a day in my life where I felt like the girls of middle school had more powers than the boys?
What the fuck is she talking about right now?
I remember distinctly realizing in 6th grade that the most popular boys in our class were like determined by athleticism, and then the most popular girls in our class were determined by who the most popular boys liked.
Yes.
Like, it was so traceable that even I, a young anthropologist in the midst of the problem, could say, I see what's happening here. It is visible.
I mean, the names that I can still recall without remembering a single face attached, and the way it turned me into a petty bitch being like, well, she's not that pretty. Like, she's not that cool. Like, the way that it immediately gets decided by the boys and then everyone has to fall in line. There's like 3 most popular boys. They pick girls and then every other boy in class has to have a crush on those same girls. The dynamic changes fairly quickly as we go through life, facing challenges, breakups, assholes, and losers. And suddenly, the untouched self-esteem is out the window. Once again, I have distinct memories from 1st grade of comparing my body to other girls and hating myself.
Oh my God. On our 1st grade family vacation, I'm in the back of the photo. I like did it class photo style where I put myself in the back because I thought my legs were too big. And I was 6.
Oh my God. I wish I had known what I know now and held on to that inconceivable feeling of power. What is she talking about? I'm like, if this is how you felt power to you, I'm so impressed that you were able to hold on to it until middle school. That is incredible work and I'm proud of you, but like, I think you're lying.
One of the least powerful people on this planet is a middle school girl. I just couldn't relate less. So this first chapter is about her first kiss, where she heard a popular girl kissed a boy. So she's like, well, now I have to. She was taller than all the guys. She didn't care.
She was 13 years old.
So she sends this boy a note in his locker, sealed with a lip smacker, flavored kiss. Do you want to be my first kiss? Check yes or yes. I was confident it would be yes. See you after school. Be there. Be square. So she goes and she's much taller than him. So like without verbalizing it, her friend just grabs this guy by the waist, lifts him up and she like kisses him. She claims it happened quickly and lasted for 5 seconds. And I was like, well, that's not quick.
That's not quick. I also don't believe a single thing about this story. I also feel like to introduce this book about how men have made you crazy with a story about how you had to kiss a guy because you were comparing yourself to another girl. And so you sneak attacked a guy when he was incapacitated by being held in the air. It just doesn't fit. We're on page 9.
So it turns out that people were gossiping about this. This kid had told people that they went to second base. I'm deeply confused by when he would have told people this because this was like a public kiss that happened in their schoolyard. So they saw what they saw, but I guess 1989 rules. You know what I mean?
Totally.
No. What was that book? Sorry.
1984.
Wow. Taylor Swift has warped my brain and made me stupid.
There was no year that wasn't 1989.
1989, that famous novel about authoritarian governments.
Actually?
1984, meet Taylor Swift. The Swifties would beg you not to believe what you see with your eyes, ears, and nose, and that Maddie Healy has slicked back hair. Moving on. Sorry, you guys, we're recording this the week after TTPD.
Yeah.
So we're a bit frazzled.
I, for one, am tortured.
Anyway, so he tells people apparently that they had gone to second base. Apparently, our height difference had humiliated him to the point where he sought revenge in the most childish way. His lies ruined my reputation at school, and I was immediately labeled a slut. I started this year super confident and unashamed of my feelings, and this betrayal was the first of many that chipped away at my belief in myself. I learned quickly that guys will go for the jugular. If you bruise their ego, they're coming after you hard, and I guess in 7th grade, the jugular was my tits.
Okay, I am not ever in my life ever again trying to side with a middle school boy. But to say that like our height difference bruised his ego and not, according to this story, him being physically removed from the ground and forced to kiss you. Like, do you think that didn't fuck with us? It's not the height difference. It's the loss of dignity in your like low-key schoolyard assault. So maybe he lied.
It sucks. It sucks to be slut-shamed in 7th grade after you've like assaulted someone. But I am like, what is the other side and what is the truth? Okay, and then we get one of the crazier chapters I've ever read in my life.
This is wild.
It's called Family Affair.
So she says, once again, a generalization. If you are a girl with a hot brother and you have friends, chances are they're not your friends.
Chances are you have a lot of friends who are using you to get to him. Don't say that, Kristen. That's not true. I don't know many people who have tried to get to a hot man via his sister.
Same.
I think if you're a hot guy with a little sister, a lot of her friends probably have crushes on you, but I don't think it was
by design that like their friendship is not to get to you.
She then says something even crazier. So she's like, I had a friend, her older brother was hot, and I was like, I have to use her to get to him. And then she says, meanwhile, not only was I becoming best friends with his sister, his parents were in love with me too. I could do no wrong. They needed dishes washed. I was there. Laundry. I'll show you how many Tommy Hilfiger briefs I could fold in an hour. Movie nights. I made the popcorn. This is insane. She's like,
you
12.
worked for that family.
You were their Dobby. What do you mean this family let you fold their laundry? That's insane. Why would you even offer? I'd be so freaked out. The last thing I'd ever want was my child's friend to go through my laundry.
Can you imagine exactly how predictable it would be when that girl like calls her parents 25 years later and is like, do you remember that girl who was like the weirdest girl I knew and she was always doing our laundry? She's always scream crying on reality TV now.
I will say, reading this book, everyone in her town must have been like, oh, of course. She's so crazy.
It made me wonder so badly what would have happened if she had stayed in Dearborn, Michigan.
Something this book really begs the question is like the definition of American success.
Yeah.
She keeps being like, do they even like me or do they just like that I'm successful? And I'm like, what is that?
She is like on billboards and movie posters and like TV like, do you know what I mean? I don't know.
No, I mean, yeah, of course she's successful.
In terms of people on TV who are the more successful ones.
And that way, Gypsy Rose Blanchard, very successful.
I think so too. She came straight out of jail and did fucking Spencer Pratt's podcast, I think.
And we've been begging.
Or Nick Viall, which one of those blonde beards that I hate.
We'll never get to do Nick Viall's podcast because he sent me his book. And then I was like, I can't.
I also talk shit about him constantly.
So then she does this thing that I do not understand at all, which is she gives you tips for how, if you are 13, to get with your friend's older brother. And I am like, who do you think is reading this book? I think because I even understand telling the story of what you did to try to get with him. Like, that's a funny memory. But the format of the rest of this chapter is like a step-by-step guide on how to get with a 14-year-old boy. And I am like, for whomst?
Okay, so I think that this book was probably actually written as a memoir. And then they were like, okay, this is really just only about the people she's dated from age 13 and by dated in a loose term from 13 to 37. And then they were like, okay, it's also only like 110 pages. So what can we do to like zhuzh it up? And they went back in and inserted these
No, of course, the Stassi
and
Schroeder
lists.
of it all.
Yeah.
Have you ever read Highlights magazine? I think that'd be a great direction. Anyway, so here are the tips. 1, be more mature. So she would read Harry Potter and watch 60 Minutes and watch ESPN so that she would know things. Then no more pajamas. If you go over to his house and like sleep in his sister's room, the next morning you have to look sexy. So wear a thong. Then form a strong bond. Try to get like inside jokes going with him. Try to get alone with him. Try to like have one-on-one time.
Then you have to get good at something he's good at. So if he plays PlayStation, you have to get good at PlayStation so that you can play PlayStation together. Then you have to like make his friends think you're hot, because if his friends think you're hot, then he'll have a crush on you too, which I will say that is actually good advice if you're 14.
Can I say though, so then she throws a party in her basement with just her, the sister, and all of this guy's friends. That is like crazy to me for a 14-year-old girl to do.
Of course.
I was a crazy 14-year-old girl. I had crushes. I was a little boy crazy teenage hormone psychopath. I never once was like, throw a party and I'm the only girl. I'm definitely going to get dick then. Stack the numbers in your favor. At this party, they play Spin the Bottle and kiss, and she's like, there are fireworks. He's into it. I can tell.
She can never really tell.
So they go to the Cranberries concert with his family, which I'm like, one thing about Kristen Doute is she goes to a lot of concerts I'm kind of jealous of in this book.
Yeah. I would have loved to go to that Cranberries concert. Later, they go see Third Eye Blind. Would have loved to be there.
Anyway, so they go, and he brings a date, and they sit on opposite sides of the section in their row. And she's like, what the fuck? I was crushed. I'd come to terms with the fact that he just didn't look at me the same way he looked at this other girl. And then here's her lesson. This is the thing about guys. He gave me just enough attention, a glimmer of hope that he and I might actually have a future. It was just a game for him, and I didn't see through it. Instead, I wasted my precious time reinventing my awesome self for him, which turns out is something you should never do.
So what attention was he giving?
You were at his house folding his laundry.
Like, I think he just like simply acknowledged that you exist in his presence. And because you were in his presence constantly, it would have been rude not to acknowledge it more than once.
You said it was just a game.
I don't think he played a game at all.
You acted crazy. You set a trap and you couldn't trap him. Imagine if on Naked and Afraid, when those people put up those rudimentary raccoon traps to try to eat, if they were like, oh, that raccoon, he keeps playing games with us.
That raccoon's given me just enough attention
to think I could eat tonight. Ooh, he's playing games.
I changed myself for that raccoon, something you should never do. Okay, so now we're in high school. Freshman year of high school, I was in crisis mode. Her friends are all dating and she is not yet, because she has been wasting like 1 year at a time working her way into new families.
So it's senior freshman day, which is a day that honestly shouldn't exist, where a freshman gets to pick a senior and they have to hang out with them all day. And I'm like, this feels illegal. Like, there's a big age discrepancy between 14 and 18. Anyway, she knows who she's going to pick. It's the hottest guy in town.
Totally. So they hang out.
They flirt. She goes over to his house. She ends up giving him a hand job.
An over-the-pants hand job.
The next day at school, I told everyone about our deep love and that I now had a boyfriend. He, on the other hand, would only stop long enough to give me a high five in the hallway between classes.
She says that during this senior freshman day, she had 89 minutes for him to fall in love with her. I can't believe this whole book is about her trapping and tricking guys and then it not working.
Can I say the reason they were together at first is because she went up and signed up first to get this guy she had a crush on. Anyway, she gives him a hand job and then he's like, oh, no, we're not boyfriend, girlfriend. I didn't have to waste time on him. I didn't need or want to date a guy who didn't want to show me off. I knew I deserved a real relationship out in public in all its glory.
Do you think she'll ever get that?
No. You can't lock a man in a closet, give him a hand job and be like, why aren't you my husband? Oh my God.
This is crazy. So now 1 year later.
This is not the first guy she has sex with. And I have to be honest, I don't even know if I would call it sex.
I will say most of this book just made me feel truly sad for her.
When a man drives you crazy, sometimes you have to chase him. That's not true. That's not true. And especially if a man drives you crazy by existing, then that's not an invitation to chase him. The year was 1998. I was a sophomore. He was a senior, and it was time to lose my virginity. Here's how I did it. Okay, losing your virginity is not like getting into college.
It's not something you should plot and strategize for. It's something that like should happen when two consenting individuals decide it's right for them.
Okay, so she had a crush on a hockey player. He went to another school. Luckily, the two schools only had one hockey team. So what did she do? She quit her hobbies. What did she give up on?
Oh, she quit cheerleading?
And became the team manager so that she would just be with them at every practice and at every game so she could get around this guy. Pro tip 3, don't be deterred by the friend zone. Don't let a no stop you from getting a yes.
Oh my God. Don't take "you're my best friend" for an answer. Don't let him make you like one of the guys. You can always turn that around. I did. No, you didn't.
So she invites him to her school Sadie Hawkins dance.
She gets him drunk.
I made my sister buy us a case of beer. I worked tirelessly on my dance moves. I bought the sickest dress from Jacobson's. Honestly, I think the beer alone could have done it. And then they drove around in a rented limo getting drunk. I'm like, Kristen, I can't believe she's like, can you believe the way that these men have treated me? They made me I'm like, everything you've done is insane. The idea that you have to get an 18-year-old boy drunk to sleep with you.
Devastating. So she drives him around. They go to the dance and then they kiss at the dance. It was incredible. They were hanging out in his basement. He had a party and she was
this
like...
pro tip is literally called always be the last to leave.
Jesus Christ.
And I know I said that literally at the beginning of this episode, but I did not mean like this.
Not like this. Okay, so it's 10 o'clock. Everyone's left. She says it's now or never. There was no foreplay. We got right down to it. I was having sex for the first time. He lasts 1 minute.
They stop because she starts crying. She's like, at 10:01, we start having sex. At 10:02, I cry and he like pushes me off and we go to sleep.
I was so focused on plotting and planning that I didn't realize how my first time would feel. It was a tsunami. It is a big deal and you don't understand how you'll feel until you're in the middle of it. Okay, I think in some ways, yes. And in some ways, let yourself be with someone who is nice to you.
I just feel like, did he even want to have so... this whole story is so crazy and I don't
very
blame
scary.
him for a minute. And then he goes to college and she gives him a scrapbook of like poems and lyrics. And she's like, you know, we weren't dating, but he was never my boyfriend. We never had sex again. And he'll always be my first. I don't even know that that's true, Kristen. This is a crazy story. And she's like, I didn't think I could ever get over it, but don't worry, you'll always get over it. I'm like, get over what? Why did you make this happen to yourself?
Historically, I have a type and it's dim-witted model boy. Fucking same, bitch.
So she is at, her car broke down or something and this rich kid from the local high school stops, picks her up. They end up having sex everywhere. They're having fun. And then it turns out he's going into Miami. And she's like, wait a minute, I thought you were so stupid. I didn't know that like college was just about being rich.
So he is 19. And so she's like, oh, he must have failed a year of high school. But it turns out he was like redshirted in high school. So he could go to Miami.
So he goes to college and she's like, nothing will change, right? And he's like, totally nothing will change. And then he comes back Thanksgiving with a girlfriend, obviously. I never in a million years thought it would end, ever, especially in this way.
What I thought we shared was an unabashed affection with no fear whatsoever. I thought we shared mutual vulnerability, but he pulled a disappearing act. He didn't even have the courage to break up with me or to have a conversation about it. I was never given even a moment of opportunity to express how I felt, to have those feelings acknowledged, or to convey what I was going through. He only thought about himself.
From then on, moving forward, the fear of losing anyway, the way I lost him, kept me from the pure intimacy I'd been striving for.
In what way?
Can I also say that's the most like middle school boy thing ever, to be like, oh, I can't love you. This girl in 7th grade broke my heart.
Well, especially because throughout the rest of this book, she's like, anyway, and then I met this guy at a Pizza Hut and I thought we were going to get married.
I will say that does suck. When you're in high school and you think it's going to make it in college, it sounds like they weren't even communicating. Like he should have at least called you and broken up with you. I don't know.
Yeah.
It does suck, but...
No, I don't think this is a nice story.
No, but the way that she's like, anyway, since then I've been fucked up. And I'm like, I don't think that's true.
I think that you started fucked up.
Okay. This next boyfriend, literally this is a list of boyfriends, was a thespian. He was like in the theater department. He had a crush on her. And she liked that he had a crush on her, but she thought he was really corny. And then she saw him play as Danny Zuko and was like, humana.
Auga.
So then they're boyfriend, girlfriend, and he's supposed to be her date to her dad's wedding. And I'm like, can we get into this? Let's talk about your parents' divorce. I think one page about your parents' divorce would tell me more than 200 pages about every guy who ever dumped you.
He stands her up. He just doesn't show up to her dad's wedding.
So after the ceremony, before the reception, during the cocktail hour, she gets into the limo her dad rented for himself and like is like, drive me to this man's house. He opens the door and he's like, sorry, I got grounded. I couldn't come to the wedding.
She says he answered in a silk smoking jacket.
Okay. They're in Dearborn, Michigan. That's crazy.
How did he ever even hear about that?
He's a thespian. He's wise beyond his years. He's been living the life vicariously through characters. Anyway, he goes, my mom made me be grounded. I knew he was lying. His mom came to the door and I could tell right away that she was going to get him out of it. So she like walks into the house and demands to talk to his mother to confirm that he was grounded.
Yikes. Tears ran down my cheeks. Fuck the season of love.
Okay, it is really insanely ballsy as a 14, 15-year-old girl to be like, put your mother on the phone. Can you imagine?
I think that's why his mother did not like her. I imagine her as like one of those girls who's like 15 and a half who like shows up and is like, Carol, should we have a tea? I'd love to get to know you better while I'm dating your son.
As the women of the house, we've got to do something about your son's ACT scores.
We're basically family.
Yuck. I will say one thing about Kristen Doute is she always has a boyfriend. If you're someone
No, she doesn't. She's always in hot pursuit.
No, sometimes she dated the thespian. She dated the guy who went to Miami, and now she's about to date a guy on the football team.
That's true.
So if you're at home single, what do you not have that Kristen Doute?
What's my fucking problem, huh?
Do you think maybe you could learn something from this book?
Yes. I'm not plotting and planning.
That's true. Have you thought about using a trap? Have you thought about a stun gun? Have you thought about catching a man quite literally with a hook?
Oh my God, what if we do that? What if we go to bars together and you pick them up to kiss me?
I want one of those old-timey hooks that they had in the Charlie Chaplin days that to like pull someone off stage.
Yeah.
I want to be like, oh, I got you. Now you're a husband. The Doute way.
The Doute method.
Howdy doody.
The snatch and grab. Okay, so senior year was idyllic, a magical time. Everything was perfect. He was a star quarterback. I was a cheerleader.
So they start dating. She's like, you don't understand. It was perfect. It was great. It was perfect. It was great. One day she goes home from a party early and suddenly she feels that her women's intuition. She runs back to the party and she goes, where is he? And everybody's like, I don't know. She opens up a door and there he is making love to another girl. She goes down to the bathroom hysterical, waiting for him to come be like, I'm so sorry. And instead she just like kind of tires herself out. I guess they keep fucking upstairs. And so finally she walks out and she like goes to approach him and he's like defending this other girl. He's like, you leave her alone. And she's like, yeah, I'm not mad at her. I'm mad at you. And then she punches him in the nose and breaks his nose. I don't know what came over me. I never hit anyone in my life and now there was blood all over my shirt. I was terrified.
I had to reevaluate, regroup, and rebound. How could I be so naive? I could never let this happen again. Crazy Kristen had awakened. What so far had been not crazy?
Okay, well, you skipped 2 paragraphs and I almost want to talk about every single sentence. She says, on Monday, he came back to school with 2 black eyes. We could have tried to stay together, but it would never be the same. Of course not. You've assaulted him. He's now one of the many victims of Kristen Doute. Also, what do you mean we could have tried to... He was interested? Are you just saying that?
Did he ask?
And then she says, his parents wanted to press charges. People kept calling me Tyson. Those are not equal things, but yeah, I agree. This is why it would have been impossible to continue dating. And then she says, before this incident, the concept of cheating like that had never even occurred to me.
Her last boyfriend cheated on her at college.
Crazy. Part 2, kissing every frog.
Detective Doute reporting for duty.
She goes, in 2003, as I was turning 20 years old, I was in my longest relationship to date. My boyfriend and I had been together for 2 years, and on a scale from 1 to peak crazy Kristen, I was still a somewhat trusting normal human being. No, you're not.
You're not. So then her boyfriend goes on a cruise, and some random girl calls her and is like, my cousin is on that cruise, and your boyfriend is canoodling with someone else.
And these are the days like pre-Instagram and Facebook. So I'm like, how could you know? How could you know? Imagine if your cousin was like calling me being like, Claire, your high school boyfriend's on this cruise.
So she's like, what do you mean he's canoodling? And then he gets back and he's like, I have to go to Atlanta for a work conference
with my dad and my uncle. And Kristen is like, well, there was an easy way to disprove this. It turns out she worked at the company with the dad and the uncle. And it turns out the entire company was the dad, the uncle, the boyfriend, and Kristen. And she was the receptionist. And she was like, so I called. And if anyone picked up, that meant they were not in Atlanta.
She's like, if I wasn't there to answer the phone, then no one should have been there to answer the phone. And if someone was there to answer the phone, I've caught them in a lie.
Anyway, it turns out, sure enough, they catch him in a lie. And so her friend comes over. She's crying. And she's like, why would he lie to me? And they're like, let's drive to his house and see what's up. And sure enough, there he is with another girl on the couch. And this breaks her heart because this wasn't any business. It was a carpet cleaning business, which begs the question, why would they have been going to Atlanta?
A carpet cleaning convention, Claire. They're inventing new chemicals every fucking day.
Maybe there was a really big carpet in Atlanta.
Before they had those TikToks where you watch those guys steam clean those carpets, you had to go there in person.
Steam clean. What do you think steam is? They're like hosing down those carpets.
With steam.
With water.
Hot steam water.
No.
When she finds out they're cheating and she goes, what was I going to do? This was my husband to be. All my friends had gone off to college and were working towards degrees. I didn't know which direction I wanted my life to go. At the time, I thought marrying him and having a stable job parallel to his career equaled success and happiness.
I find that very endearingly honest. She really is like, we were gonna have a family and they were gonna inherit the carpet cleaning business. She's like, he taught me everything I know, like how to switch a line. Anyway, so here's how you catch a man. 1, confirm the lie. She did this by calling his business. 2, catch him in the act. She did this by driving over and seeing him canoodling. 3, get wasted, vow to never speak to him again. 4, remember the good times, doubt your own eyes. So the next morning, he like calls her and is apologizing and stuff. And she's like, you know what? It's not so bad. But then she's like, why isn't he driving over here with flowers? That's so weird. It seems like he'd want to apologize in person.
And so then she calls her friend and they go back to his house and he's still with the girl.
He had been like, you don't understand. She tricked me into this. I'm like, what is she, Kristen? How'd she trap you?
So men can be trapped.
She's like, this girl was crazy. I found them in bed. I was gonna hit her and I was about to do it when she gazed up at me. Full transparency, she just seemed kind of weird. This poor girl. I decided I wasn't gonna get into a physical fight with somebody who just stared like that, who didn't seem like she would fight back. She just lay there blinking at me way too slowly for comfort. So I left. Yeah, Kristen, she seems crazy.
She goes, in my head, I was chanting girl fight, girl fight, girl fight over and over, trying to amp myself up until I had the courage to take a swing.
It is so funny to be like, you know, those TikToks that are like, you're the main character, glamorize your own life, put on some music. She's like, you're in a porn. You just don't know it yet.
The way we've read a lot of books at this point. Would you agree?
I really think we've read close to 200 memoirs, which is something I find sick about us.
I've never in my life seen a ghostwriter so blatantly despise their subject.
She says in the acknowledgements they're best friends, that they never get sick of each other.
Okay, well, she thought that college guy was her boyfriend.
She's an empath. I just think you're not picking up on something here.
Totally. I'm not an empath. It's hard for me.
And then they get back together. And then she like breaks into his email and finds out that they're still emailing.
And then she breaks into her email and just locks her out of her live journal.
And she's like emailing her own boyfriend as this other girl breaking up with him. Yeah. And then locks her out of the live journal.
And then she includes this section where she's like, it's actually so easy to figure out someone's internet password, especially in the like early 2000s. And so she has this whole thing about like how to guess someone's internet password.
And she does say, like, just ask the security questions. Like, oh, what kind of music do you like? What was your first concert? And then she says crazy things like, oh, random, my first grade teacher's actually, his name was Flea. Do you remember your first grade teacher's name? And she says, just ask these things casually early on when you're dating to make it look like you're getting to know him and then file them away. You never know when you'll need to sneak. Here's what I wanted to say about relationships. And not that I'm holier than thou or know anything, but one of my hottest takes.
Ooh. Hot take coming in. Ding, ding, ding.
Is I think that the girls, I don't want to like make this about girls, but mostly I'm in the minds of those heterosexual wombats. Is that the girls most afraid of being cheated on? Like the girls who are like least trusting, most likely to go through his phone, blah, 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 are the ones most likely to forgive him if they catch him cheating. Because I think if you are that untrusting, if you're going through his phone looking for evidence, then there is a part of your brain that believes that he is cheating and has accepted it. And you're still with him.
Yeah.
So that means that there is some part of you that's like still dating somebody that in some way you think is actively currently cheating on you. And you're like just in that relationship.
Like if you think someone is cheating on you, that means you don't trust them. So that means you've agreed already to be in a relationship with someone you don't trust.
Exactly. And I really do think that you're already okay with it. And I almost think like you with the salmon in your house, like you have the olfactor fatigue of thinking it's wrong because you're almost then relieved that you finally caught it. Do you know what I mean? Like you're like habituating yourself to this idea of being in a relationship with a cheater. I also do believe that a relationship is not a criminal court of law. If you think you're being cheated on, it is not on you to find evidence beyond a shadow of a doubt that it's true in order to break up. You're allowed to be like, if I do not trust my boyfriend, I shouldn't be in this relationship. And I think it goes both ways. I think if you are not made to feel secure and safe in your relationship, then why are you in that relationship? Like you shouldn't feel like you have to go through his phone to check stuff because you don't trust him. Because again, that means that there's a part of you that thinks he could be out there cheating. Like don't be with someone that you think is cheating on you. And on the reverse, if you're one of those crazy girls who's obsessed with not trusting your boyfriend for no reason, they shouldn't be in a relationship with you.
They should be with someone who wants to trust them unless they're not trustworthy.
You deserve to be, just as if you've ever had a jealous boyfriend who's obsessed with proving that you're cheating, you don't deserve that. In a relationship, if you've done nothing wrong, you deserve to be trusted. And if they've done nothing wrong, like you deserve to be with someone you trust.
Yeah.
It's not about proving yourself. There's no fucking judge. It's only you feeling confident and loved and like made stronger and happier in your relationship. Why else do it?
Yeah, it's not a court of law. I feel like I know so many people where like nothing really goes wrong. And so they just don't know how to break up when you could just not want to be with someone.
Sorry, I just want to read these out loud. He's the one. Let your suspicions grow. Discover his secrets. Destroy him and her. These are her tips, but she's not crazy.
Totally. The other girl's crazy. Okay, so then she moves to Maryland.
Because she meets a full-on burner who loved EDM and was a
she
DJ.
Loves Burning Man. At one point, she calls herself a hopeful future burner.
Okay, so does she love Burning Man?
She idealizes Burning Man.
Can I say? I have to like actually show a bit of understanding and support because that's so me.
To be a hopeful burner.
I just feel like so much of my life is hoping that one day I get to do like incredibly doable things. Like me and Ashley will walk by a restaurant that she lives near and for years I'm like, God, I hope we can go there. We go out to eat like 4 times a week and that restaurant never had a customer. Any minute of my life I could have gone to that restaurant, but I was always like, maybe for a birthday.
Someday.
What was it called? It was like called Casa Lipa or something.
I don't know. We have so many things that we've added to like a mental list that we never remember until we're actively walking past it to go to a different place.
There are so many things in my life where I'm just like, God, I hope one day I could have that eyeliner. And you'll be like, it's $16 and we're in Sephora now. And I'm like, it's not time. I've been hoping that one day I could have silver Huggies.
Claire is always justifying like buying a new pair of Uggs when her old pair of Uggs have like puff fisting out the side, and she'll just be like, do you think I could get myself new Uggs for my birthday? And I'm begging you to get new Uggs for your birthday and in a size bigger than last time so that your toes and the fluff can all fit in the shoe.
I don't know what's wrong with me.
A lot.
There are some things that are just like not for the likes of me.
You do pretty well.
I'm not like fiscally conservative. I don't know where it goes.
Me either.
But not to the necessities, I'll tell you that.
But not Burning Man.
No.
No one should go there.
No.
Okay, so then she meets this guy, a DJ. And they move to Maryland, Ocean City, where he's DJing at this place. And she gets a job working at this bar that is inside of the ocean. And so she can flirt with him while he's DJing. And she can wait out to the tables and give them their orders. And then she gets pinched by a crab on her toe. And she's like, I'm not doing this job anymore. So she is back home. And he starts hanging out with this new waitress.
She's back home like at their apartment.
Yeah. Sorry, at the apartment they share in Maryland. And he's DJing and flirting with a new waitress.
They, by the way, are living off of like pancake batter. They're like dead broke.
Yeah, which I don't know why there was not a second place outside of water that she could have worked.
I've been to Ocean... No, I haven't been to Ocean City, Maryland, but I know the gist. And I know that there's a second bar where you could be a waitress.
Totally. This waitress is now flirting with her boyfriend. And so she's like, well, what if I have a threesome with them to find out if they're fucking behind my back? Because if they have sex romantically with me there, that means they've had sex before. So she flirts with this waitress. The waitress has a crush on her and tries to hook up with her. But then she's like, actually, this plan is kind of foiled. So she's like, never mind, threesome is off. And then he still breaks up with her for the waitress.
Whatever, dude. If I'd gone for it, she would have left with me. I have to say the idea of being like, I think my boyfriend likes another girl. What if we all fuck? is one of the crazier things I've ever heard in my life.
Especially because she's like, confirmed, he doesn't. And then she was like, oh no.
Also, because this is not a tactic she employs once.
It's kind of one of her go-to moves.
She's big on the exploratory threesome. You know how some people do like a Google search? She's like, what if we found out in a threesome? What's weird is she's like never even having fun. If she like loved to have a threesome, I'd be like, more power to you. That's fun. You can't be having a threesome for the wrong reasons. And the wrong reason is you can't threesome at someone. You can't be like, what do you think about this?
A threesome is not a good time to do research.
It's just not a good time to have a heart-to-heart relationship conversation. Threesomes are not couples therapy, nor should they be used as such.
Okay, so then she has a chapter about being sexually assaulted, and it's just kind of thrown in here to be like, this is not good.
And she's like, I've never talked about it before, but I wouldn't be honest with you guys if I didn't talk about it. And the more we talk about it, the more we can talk about it.
Which is true. It just made me feel sad for her. I was like, oh man, you have been led astray.
I really can't overemphasize how nothing this chapter is. She's like, something happened once. She doesn't really say what it was. She doesn't say where, when. I don't think she has to like give us all the gory details, but she doesn't get into how it made her feel. Like, she just is like, something happened. I don't want to talk about it. I've never talked about it, but I'm going to talk about it. And this is me talking about it. So hopefully people could talk about it. And I am just like, what was the point of this book? What was the point of this chapter?
Yeah. She's very stunted. There is just like something about her where like the way she talks about sex and love and relationships and trauma is like the way a 15-year-old talks about it and is like, oh my God, no, I'm not talking about that. So random. And I feel really bad saying that about an assault.
No, but it was a weird chapter to say. Like, why gear up to say something serious and be like, this is serious and it's this hard to talk about it, and then not, like, why not just not talk about it?
Yeah.
I just don't know who this would have helped in any way. I guess it comes back to everything is why write a book then? And I know these are merch, but I just feel like even the people who write the lowest, merchiest books are like, I put my heart and soul. I never would have guessed. It took so long. I've never worked so hard on anything. I've never like known myself so well. And I'm just like, how could you try so hard at something and have it come out so blah?
I guess with that chapter though, I think just like anyone and everyone throwing their experience out there to show that it is just like
common
and statistically like you're not alone.
But yeah, you don't have to feel shame.
Yeah, like you can just like say it without saying it while saying it. And like that is a first step.
Yeah. I think the problem with writing a book is when you're being held to the standard of a book.
Totally.
Like the medium of book is more than an Instagram graphic with words. It's more than...
Oh, this
do you
book
know what I mean?
Overall made me furious with the publishing industry. You guys have to stop like belittling your own product like this.
And I do feel like what she said, like I agree with you. And like I do think that there are times where people like Me Too, like, you know, the hashtag Me Too, there are so many opportunities for people to come out and be like, you're not alone. This has happened to so many people. But it's weird when you read it in a book because you're like, why write a book when you could have written a tweet?
Totally. So then she's in LA, and I would have liked to know when she moved and why. Like what brought her out to LA?
Because I guess now she's trying to be an actress, and I'm just like, who gave you that idea?
She never in this book mentions acting. I think she only mentions the music industry. I wonder if acting was like a Vanderpump plotline.
She also says, I was his model girlfriend. And I was like, were you a model?
What does that mean to you, modeling?
It's just crazy because I think so many people out there that I know from comedy and I feel like other things are so nervous about moving to New York or LA. And they're like, I got to get all my ducks in a row and it's going to be so hard. And then you have people like Kristen Doute, who was like, I couldn't keep a boardwalk DJ who played music on the boardwalk unlicensed. That's not true. He had a license that was $1. But like, she's like, well, I couldn't hack it as a waitress in Ocean City. So what if I tried to make it in LA?
And she did. We're reading her book.
I know, but I'm conflicted.
So then she meets this guy that she thinks is so cool, and he's a tour manager for like this big internationally touring band. She thinks he's really cool and smart, and they talk all the time. And then when he's on tour, they're always like Skyping. And then he gets back to New York and they spend New Year's Eve together
at his sister's house with his parents, nieces, and nephews, which is an intense second time to ever meet.
Yeah. And at 12:01, he breaks up with her.
So they go back, they have sex, and he says, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to date you. And I say, you're breaking up with me? And he goes, I can't break up with you. I was never your boyfriend. Oof. And she goes, this had to be about the tattoo. Let me tell you about the tattoo.
He has a tattoo of like some stars. And she, I guess at one point had been like, this is the kind of tattoo that would look really cute on you.
Yeah. She had said, oh, I like your tattoo. And he'd go, oh, it would look good on you. And I just knew he always wanted me to get a matching one. This had to be why he broke up with me. So the next day she gets the tattoo he has that she recalls from memory tattooed on her body. And then she goes to the bar that she knows he'll be at because his friend works there. And she marches right up to him and goes, look, I got the tattoo.
And he was like,
why did you do that?
And then she gets it covered with an Aquarius symbol.
I chose the symbol for Aquarius, my sun sign, as it represents the water from the vessel washing away the past and leaving room for a fresh new start. I think here's the problem. We have all done stupid shit. I have so many
problem.
I think we all like look back and we're like, oh my God, how humiliating was that? Like, I just have all these flashbacks of me doing cringy things when I was 12, 15, 18, 19, 28, where I thought I was like coming off cute and sexy, or I thought a guy like where I was just playing myself.
Yes.
And I think she thinks she's doing that too. I think she's like, oh, we all have these funny stories. I'm going to laugh at myself. I'm reclaiming my narrative. You'll laugh with me. We're laughing together. I don't know how to tell her that like she has borderline personality disorder. There are funny stories and then there's like, oh no, what happened to you is bad. Like, I don't know how to tell her that these are not just like, we've all been there. We all got too drunk. We all like puked on a first, like, you know what I mean? Everyone's done something embarrassing. To get a tattoo for a guy who ended it the second time you hung out, what did she think was like? That actually is like mania.
Yeah, I feel like that's the thing is I'm like, it's not nice that he broke up with you at 12:01 on New Year's Eve. I think that'd really fuck with me on New Year's Day. Sorry.
If the first time I was asked out on a date, he said, meet my mom and then I'm going to fuck you and then I'm going to end it, I'd be like, you're an asshole.
I'd be like, you're being crazy. But then to go get a tattoo matching with him, that's insane.
And then like show it to him.
Uninvited.
That's the problem. And she's being like, isn't this a funny story? And I'm like, you need help. You are who Taylor Swift thinks she is in her last album.
Yeah.
You are crazy.
You're a tortured poet. She outlines the 5 types of crazy. I don't think we need to go through them.
Because they're not that good.
Yeah.
And then she ultimately, her conclusion is, boys love crazy. No. This whole book is evidence that they don't.
So then she gets on MySpace and she's using it to meet guys. She's single in LA and she finds 2 guys to date that she really likes. And she like isn't ready to commit to either of them because she's recently heartbroken.
And she also feels that neither of them were that interested in her until she started dating the other one. And once she was less available, then they both were like, I'd love to be your boyfriend.
Yeah.
So they find out that they're both dating her and they demand that she picks. And she goes, I did what anybody would do in this situation. I had 2 Tylenol PM and a glass of wine. When I woke up, the fire department was in my apartment putting me on a gurney. And I'm like, okay, so I'm a lightweight.
You drugged yourself to sleep?
That was not 2 Tylenol PM. 2 Tylenol PM helps you achieve rest. It does not like keep you knocked out when someone busts in your front door. You do not on 1 glass of white wine and 2 Tylenol PM like pass out beyond consciousness. So she's like, I don't know. It turns out I guess I'd been on the phone with one of them and passed out and they got really nervous and called the police department. What are you talking about? But this is when I went, oh, you are meant for reality TV. Because if she was your friend, you'd be like, yeah, we all get into crazy situations, but she gets into like insane situations. Like, that's crazy. So then she meets another guy in LA who basically is like so chill and she's so mad about it because she's like, I wanted to get into a fight and he's always so even keeled and he sends her to a cult. And I think this cult is, I have a friend who did it and she didn't know it was a cult. She thought it was just like an experience. I think she did this thing called Landmark, which is like a cult in that the people who formed it like formed some crazy cult in California in the 70s and then they were sent to jail. And then their partner started a new thing called Landmark.
Oof.
Anyway, so he's like, you have to go. And she goes for 3 days. And she actually, by the end of it, is like, wait, I'm enlightened and I'm changed and I'm different.
And then she goes back and she like talks to him one time and is like, never mind, I'm crazy.
But what it does at the end is, so their big thing is they're like, find out the narrative of your life. What stories have you been telling yourself? And their big thing is like, none of what you've been experiencing is real. Like, it's all just your perspective based on the narrative you tell yourself.
Oh, yeah. So then she writes a letter to the carpet guy, the one who cheated on her all those years ago because she thought they were going to get married and own a carpet empire together. But he like kept cheating on her with that same cruise girl.
So then she writes this long letter to him apologizing for everything. And I was like, well, I think that you're crazy and difficult. I don't know that he deserves an apology. It had been years since they'd spoken.
Years.
It had happened 7 years ago. So they had broken up when she was 20?
Yeah.
So she's 27 at this point?
I guess.
Anyway, the point is, she's like, I'm really sorry for what I did to you. Like, I really went out of my way to ruin your life and burn down your relationships. And when I look back at it, you actually did a lot for my life. She's like, I've held you accountable for why my life isn't great. I think you held me back. I say that you took my youth and you like fucked up my future by making it impossible for me to have healthy relationships. But when I look back, I like learned guitar because of you and I love that. And I have a lot of great friends that I met through you and I love that. And in so many ways, you were there for me and helped me grow up and like taught me I could have a job. The truth is, you have an incredible positive impact on my life, and I really want to acknowledge you for that. You deserve all the best that life has to offer. I know you will continue to be a positive influence on others the way you did me.
So he then writes back and says, Dear Kristen, what am I supposed to say to this? I'm glad you could put me down to my friends and make yourself look good, thereby ruining many of my friendships. I forgave you a long time ago. Every day we were together, I had to forgive you just to look at you. Why should I believe this attempt to reconcile any different than before?
She says in her letter that she's like, the last time I wrote you a letter like this where I said sorry, it really wasn't because I was sorry. It was only because I wanted to look good in my own eyes and like make it seem like I was a better person than I was. I wasn't even sorry back then, but now I am.
I really can't understand why this is still so important for you to have my approval. I really don't think about you. Why do you still think about me? It was a nice enough letter. I don't understand why you would bother writing it after all this time. Maybe it was one of those letters you were supposed to write but never send, just to make yourself feel better. You're good at that.
Okay, so here's what I want to say. I don't know why she wrote that letter. I would understand that maybe she looks back and she was like, of all the things that have happened, that was like my most recent true heartbreak and that really did fuck me up. That sounds horrible.
Yeah.
And maybe she was like, I would understand if you had to do a letter like, I'm forgiving you to release myself from staying in the version of me that's acting out of fear and response to this.
But no matter what, you don't send those.
And like, what happened for him to send that insane letter back to her? Because what he said was so fucked up that I'm like, okay, well, what was his side? Not that I think what he did was right, but I am curious, what else did she do? Like, why would he feel so righteous about cheating on her? And I would never put it past a man to be like, well, it sucked when I had to handle the consequences of my actions. But then my real question is, what did she do that years later she thought she had to send that first letter? Because she ends the chapter being like, I don't know, I don't like that cult brainwashed me into thinking that I wasn't allowed to be pissed that he cheated. And I agree. I don't know why you'd have to apologize to the guy that cheated on you 7 years ago. But also I'm like, so 2 years ago, what were you apologizing for that? Like, what do we not know? This entire scenario is so crazy and it makes me wonder like how crazy you are.
Yes, because in the version of the story that she told, a letter 7 years later actually is insane. I'm sorry. I have a handful of exes where if I got a letter from them today, I'd be like, what the fuck? Like, what are you trying to fuck up in my life that you sent this letter when we have like no unfinished business?
And to send two letters.
Two letters.
Here's a letter where I apologize. And then 2 years later, like, by the way, I wasn't even sorry then, but I am now. I cannot believe I'm reading this book and being like, oh, you're crazier than I realized.
Yeah. Especially because then she's like, wait a second. He should be apologizing to me. That's really what this was for. I'm like, okay, so you didn't even get the cult lessons.
Well, it's also so funny that she's writing this whole letter about being like, I've actually changed for the first time. I'm genuinely sorry. And then immediately she's like, I'm not even sorry, by the way.
So then she dates her first Mactor, Mom Spandagal.
Don't say mom. Moms don't deserve that.
Sam Tandival. She met this guy. He was wearing a beanie. She thought that was so fucking sexy.
So they meet at a party.
I was all in from day one, but for him, it was a slow build. I thought she couldn't trust.
And she tricks him into dating her by being like, hey, I already have these 2 tickets for the Cold War Kids show if you want to come. And I'm like, I'd have gone to that too.
And then they move in together. She calls them glorified roommates. Your relationship is ready for the next level. You want to move in together. Resist the urge. Do not do it.
She does an entire chapter about how nobody should move in together. And I'm like, surely you must think somebody is capable of it. You can't possibly think, if not you, then no one.
She talks about how he never wanted to have sex with her. I think he just hated her. She like tried to seduce him when he was playing online poker and like put on lingerie. I was 26, hot, skinny, and drop dead gorgeous. He'd rather get a 2-pair Aces High than a BJ from his model girlfriend. Is the model girlfriend in the room with us right now?
She'd like to make it worse. His 2 friends, Max and also Sam Twartz, were always there with porn that they left around. And I was like, what do you mean porn they left? Where were they? Like magazines?
What does that mean?
Unfortunately, I didn't trust my intuition. I lived with him for 4 more long years. You should get out of it right now. But if I took the advice, I said, I want to end up like Kristen Doute, I'm out.
Kristen Doute told me to move out, so I have to.
So then she's like, talks about the first time Tom Sandoval cheats on her. And I think she skips a lot of her relationship. Now we're in the Vanderpump Rules days. So everything we're going to talk about from here on out, you could just watch in a quick 245 hours. Why hear it from us when you could watch it over the course of a month?
So she finds out that he cheated in Vegas.
Because she gets tagged in a tweet with a picture of a girl wearing Tom's shirt. She goes through Tom's phone records, calls every Vegas number in his phone records until she finds a girl's name and like cross references it by social media of the same name until she finds that girl. And sure enough, she figured out, she calls the girl, finds out that they cheated and was like ready to rumble when he got home. But she's like, I know you cheated. And he goes, you're right. Sorry.
He had cheated. I caught him and he copped to it. Noble, sure, but I wasn't ready for that. If he had just lied to me, it would have been easier for me to deny it to myself, to explain it away, and to tell our friends nothing happened. Fuck.
The only thing left to do in a situation like this, naturally, is to completely misplace the blame and take your anger and aggression out on the other woman. Luckily, I had friends that would happily go down that road with me. I love that she's like, luckily, I know some of the worst people in the world.
I wasn't proud of myself for coming her. It was 5 minutes of satisfaction followed by hours of self-reflection. So that's why I just kept doing that for years.
So she calls the girl and the girl's like, well, he said that you guys had broken up. And she was like, fuck. So really, it was Tom's fault. Duh.
And then she has a little section on how to catch a cheater. Number 1 is just Google it.
But she says always have a fake dating profile up so that you could try to swipe with him. Check his search history. If he has multiple email addresses, check all of them.
Oh, God.
Credit card statements, phone bills. These are great ways. Also check his pockets and his hamper.
It sounds exhausting to be with Tom Sandoval.
It sounds exhausting to be with Kristen Doute.
That's so true.
It is like funny. I guess you guys really deserved each other. You guys were in the perfect relationship where you were just in a stalemate of hatred.
In my 20s, my 5-year relationship had been through more turmoil than Britney and Kevin Federline managed in one season of Chaotic on UPN. Did you watch Chaotic, Kristen? I'm sorry, you seem insane, but you didn't beat Chaotic.
I was totally codependent, and the two of us lived in a world of denial and barely there contentment.
I was younger than I realized. What does that mean?
I think she thought that at like 29. She's like, what am I going to break with my boyfriend? I'm 29. The jig is up. You're supposed to just be in a sexless boyfriend-girlfriend situation at 29. Nobody has sex in their 30s.
I'd gotten the math wrong and I was younger than I realized.
I didn't carry the one. I thought I was 39 this whole time. Because of the millennial, it kind of switches over and starts from the beginning. So it was just hard to count.
So she's in this boring relationship, but she thinks neither of us are ever going to leave. She just didn't know what to do. We were basically platonic enemies.
It's funny to be platonic friends. It's even funnier to be like, my boyfriend, he's my enemy, I don't fuck.
Looking back, I just wanted love and affection, and it didn't matter from who or where. So this is when she sleeps with Jax Taylor.
I'm not sure how it could have happened, but it did. I slept with my boyfriend's best friend, who not too long before this used to date my former best friend.
Oof.
I didn't realize that her and Jax were not together because they always were like, what they did was equally wrong. But now that I know he was single, I'm like, oh no, you were the most, like, he was wrong, but you were still more wrong.
Well, because then she gets into it, and I guess Jax finally confessed after like a year of suspicion, but Kristen kept the lie going for way longer. And she just kept being like, Jax is a liar, Jax is a liar. So like now it's way more wrong because Jax stopped lying and you're still lying to everyone's faces.
The problem with Jax, and our friend Tell the Bee said at one time that Jax and Tom Sandoval are on opposite ends of the accountability spectrum, where Jax thinks he can never be held accountable because he won't apologize. And then Tom Schwartz won't ever apologize because he doesn't think he did anything wrong. Or Tom Sandoval. The problem with Jax is he can always come clean about anything because he will be forgiven.
Yeah.
So it's not fair. She had to lie because she's a woman.
No, actually, that's so true.
So like he had less to lose because all he has to then do is righteously be like, yeah, I fucked Kristen and I'm sorry. It was a mistake. The way that he admitted to fucking Kristen to win Stassi back because he had gossip, and that bitch cares more about gossip than her own dignity.
Yeah. Okay. And then she says the craziest line. For a while, it's working. After almost a year of being free and clear, many things had changed. The guy's ex-girlfriend and I were BFFs again. Much to my relief, he was also trying to desperately get her back. I was dealing with a scandal surrounding my boyfriend cheating, all the while still covering up my own indiscretions. And meanwhile, my hometown of Detroit had filed for bankruptcy.
Let's just say the summer was not looking up.
Not Detroit.
I can't believe you and Tom Sandoval broke up right when Detroit was at its lowest. They needed you guys as a beacon of hope.
I can't believe those motherfuckers on Vanderpump Rules expected you to have your mind focused when you were miles away thinking about poor sweet Detroit.
Obama and his bailout, it couldn't come soon enough. Think of the auto industry.
I lied and I lied until physically I couldn't bear it anymore. It ate me until I finally came clean and admitted that he was telling the truth. It was my true rock bottom. Oh, if only you knew. Years later, this is still held against me, my scarlet letter, and the world has allowed him to let it go. It's because he keeps doing way worse stuff.
Also, he is a sociopath and it works. There is this thing where you can't make anybody feel bad if they won't.
I feel like the problem with Vanderpump is that because everyone acts like such a psychopath all the time, then you get caught in these weird situations where it's like a comparison game where it's like, well, you can't be this mad at so-and-so because you only got so mad at this other person for their discretion, which was arguably only a 75% is bad. And it's just like, what is this game where like everyone is the most evil person alive, but they can like rank it amongst their classmates for like leverage?
I guess that's why Sandoval won.
Yeah.
I mean, Scandival. Why that was like the biggest moment in this show's history. Because Ariana was the first glass house still standing.
Yeah. Everyone else had been fucking up so bad for so long that like to screw her over is insane.
Yeah.
Especially because now you're watching him like fight against it and be like, but she's messy. And it's like, that's not enough. You have to have proven that she slept with Jax Taylor. Otherwise, you have nothing.
So now she's talking about the Hail Mary, which is when she flew out Miami Girl. For those of you who don't watch Vanderpump Rules, basically.
She and Tom Sandoval finally broke up because he started dating Ariana Maddox.
He cheated on her with Ariana. And then the minute they broke up, he started dating Ariana. Her righteousness came from the fact that she was sure he cheated on her with Ariana.
Which he did.
But she couldn't prove it. Like she couldn't get people to be mad at the two of them because of what had happened to her. And so then she was like, well, he's cheating on you. Like she just like was trying to take down this couple. And it was funny because I think even in this book, she admits, I don't know to what end.
Yeah.
Even she's like, and then what? We'd get back together and we could salvage that thing that was dead in the water for 4 years.
It was just like she was reality TV pilled so bad.
I also don't think that that's true. I think she's just insane.
Oh, yeah.
The first 100 pages of this book were not reality. Like, oh, the girl who got a tattoo for a guy she fucked once.
Yeah, but I do think that the reality TV like put some fire in her bosom.
It put some fire in her bosom and it made the raccoon like monetarily important.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like now they're like, if you catch that raccoon, we'll give you $1 million.
Because I think one of the things that you do see on reality TV is people fighting to salvage certain relationships because it does come at the expense of like you being a necessary storyline. I don't know that Kristen, who thinks that her entire value since age 13 is getting a boyfriend, thought that she would get to stay on the show if she wasn't with Tom Sandoval.
Yeah. So anyway, I wasn't entirely sure that I wanted him back, but I certainly didn't want them together. He had left me for her, and now he had cheated on her. I just knew once his new girlfriend heard the information, they would be done. Now she would know what it felt like to be cheated on him. After his dismissiveness of my feelings in our breakup, it was time for her to become paranoid and mistrustful. She would finally see that I wasn't the crazy one after all. This is the problem with Kristen and all reality TV is I think she thinks it's binary. And I am like, no, it's all of you.
Yeah.
So all of this effort you're proving into that you're innocent, like you aren't innocent. It's sticky mud and it's sticking to you.
So she gets Miami Girl to the bar. Miami Girl comes up. Ariana and Tom are like a force united against Miami Girl. And then she's like, oh.
Unfortunately, it wasn't over for me just yet. Not only did they not break up, but I got fired from my job for causing a stir. Whatever, suck a dick. And then here comes the biggest bombshell of the entire book. SUR does not stand for Sexy Unique Restaurant. When she first started working there, it stood for SUR, which means South in Spanish, and On in French, which are the co-owner couple, Guillermo and Natalie's native language. Okay, don't kill the lore. Sexy Unique Restaurant is actually so much funnier. That is like a much better name for a restaurant.
So then she starts dating James Kennedy in a chapter called Robbing the Cradle, where she talks about dating a young buck.
And how great it is because they fuck everywhere and they're like looking to you for guidance. And a lot of that is because you pay for everything. But isn't it fun to be in total control?
A 21-year-old was in love with me. That's right. I still got it. Stella fully had her groove back. Oh my God. I could make a 21-year-old fall in love with me in the next 8 minutes. And I don't even know where there is one right now, but I would spend 7 minutes finding one and then 1 minute making them love me.
You don't even have a TV show. There isn't even like a direct compensation for knowing you.
They're just stupid. My younger guy weaseled his way into my life by acting like he was the only person who had my back. My ex had already moved on, so why couldn't I at least act like I had moved on? The kid was a perfect mirage.
Anyway, then it turns out dating a 21-year-old kind of sucks because they can't hold their liquor and they're insane.
Especially when it's like a cokehead who is James Kennedy. It was supposed to be fun, but it wasn't. With everything that was toxic in my life at the time, I was ready to double down and really drive this speeding out of control relationship straight into the ditch.
So then she talks about Ubergate, which now we're in the quintessential reality TV book where they're like, and this is what happened in this scene that you already saw. She caught James cheating on her by looking through the Uber receipts.
Yeah.
When she figured it out, she deleted everything off of his iPad.
Not his beats.
I have to say, I'm like so not a revenge person. It's hard for me to relate to the glee she gets from locking people out of their emails. However, as someone who has suffered being locked out of email, it is quite the punishment.
Okay, and then this chapter is actually quite serious. James Kennedy is abusive.
Is that who she's talking about?
Yeah. Weren't they like beating the shit out of each other at Sheena's first wedding?
I think they showed her punch him, but cut him hitting her. There's been talk that there's other video of him hitting her, but he like spit on her door and stuff.
Once that line has been crossed, it's only a matter of time before he put his hands on me, shoving, pushing, and physical restraint. He made me feel so responsible for his mental health that I had to ask myself a question over and over again. How can I leave someone who needs real help? I would downplay our fights and shrug off the many times he would publicly embarrass me. He wasn't just a prick, he was cruel. So she told him that she wanted to break up, and then he said, "You are not single, so don't go thinking you are. You better not be telling people we're not together because it's not true." I felt trapped. I forced myself to remember that this guy was a rebound, someone I'd gone to for comfort, and that this wasn't a real loving relationship. Because love doesn't look like that. It can't. It's not my fault. I deserved better. And if you're in a situation like this, the one I'm describing, you deserve better too. There is so much evidence of him being like an abusive boyfriend on reality TV. And then with Allie, he's nice. And so everyone's just like, why are people so mean to him?
This is the problem with reality TV, is that it does protect and support like abusers and abusive people. Because if you cut right before they hit you, up until that, it's just like explosive reality TV.
Yeah.
And then also you don't want to be like the show that supports abusers. So it behooves you to protect them.
Yeah.
I think it's all about to go down for Bravo. I wish they had someone stronger than that one annoying girl leading the charge.
Me too. The way that Raquel, she is not doing a good job rehashing it on her podcast, but like there's video evidence of the way he talks to her from like 4 seasons of reality TV.
Yeah. The things they didn't think were too much to air.
Yeah. So then she joins Bumble and she meets a guy.
And they go out on a date and it's a great first date and they have sex and then he's so good to her. And like right away she fucks up her face and he takes care of her and they move in 4 months.
She's like, I just tripped on my gangly legs. So then her and Bumble guy are in what she calls the honeymoon phase.
And she says during the honeymoon phase, you're going to think that you are smarter than everybody and tell them what they're doing wrong.
Fake engagement ring in the style that I wanted just to take it for a test drive before I got the real thing. I was already planning our springtime boho hipster chic wedding. I believed I had achieved a heightened sense of awareness and enlightenment about how relationships should be.
So she's like telling everyone what they should do because she's so smart and she's in such a good relationship now. But behind closed doors, here was the truth. At the first indication of a disagreement, I would regress back to every argument I ever had in my past dysfunctional relationships. There were times that I made it almost impossible for us to fight fair. Before he even said anything, my brain would fill in what I just knew was coming out of his mouth because of all the losers I had been with. My past relationships had left me with so much baggage I didn't even realize was taking a toll on us. He was so patient, but even then, I didn't think he stood a fair chance.
Can I say, though, she talks about the things that she meddled in. First of all, she says that I had one friend who was in a relationship and like she wanted to leave and go home to Kentucky. This is Brittany, who was at that point dating Jax. And she was like, no, don't leave him. Don't leave me. Don't leave him.
No, I think she wasn't trying to keep them together. I think she was saying, you don't have to leave to Kentucky. But the problem with all these people is they're so reality TV pilled. I think what she was saying there was like, you can break up with Jax and stay on the show. So she brought her mom to Brittany to be like, see, now you have the support you need to get out of Jax's clutches, but still be working with him every day.
And then she talks about Katie and Tom's joint bachelorette party where she like pulls Tom aside and forces him to confront a cheating rumor. It's so random that she's like, I was just in such a good relationship that I was trying to help everybody else and not like I was so addicted to reality TV and also a crazy person that I was acting insane.
In hindsight, I had no right to be an interloper in my friends' relationships, or anyone's for that matter. I didn't know any better than they did. My relationship was no more perfect than the ones I was judging.
So the honeymoon phase crashes.
The next chapter is called The Breakup.
I found out that guys rarely break up with girls. They leave us to do the dirty work. I mean, you get broken up with a lot, Kristen.
She's like, every day I couldn't even get out of bed because we were fighting so much. But the hardest part of making a clean break was that without some unforgivable transgression, something I could point to, I always wondered if there was something left to be salvaged. If for multiple years you're like, I'm in a depression where I can't function because we fight so much. And then all of her friends get mad at her because she keeps saying I'm going to break up with him because he's so awful to her. And then she keeps going back and she's like, they stopped talking to me because they said I was a liar and hiding and like running back. And she's like, but what would be the reason for the breakup?
And then they keep living together because they have 2 dogs together. And so they just like keep on acting like they're in a relationship and fighting, but they're broken up. And her friends are like, this is hard for us.
And then ironically, they finally break up because he goes to her phone and sees all these texts she's been sending and all the guys she's been texting and is like, no, it's over. She goes, wow, I now understood just how wrong and invasive it is to intrude upon someone else's personal space.
Oh my God.
Karma is a bitch.
Kristen. Girls talk incessantly about our failed or failing relationships with our friends. If we had 25 hours in a day, we would talk about it for 25 hours a day. We all do it.
Okay. So this got me thinking.
Do we?
I don't know one single person who would spend 25 hours of their day talking about how much they hate their boyfriend.
I think that there are friends who like get into a bit of a pit and like need to hear themselves repeat things. This is not all we talk about.
I think the thing is, even if you are in that pit, and we've all been in that pit, and I have friends in that pit, at some point you have to go to your job.
Yeah.
Right? At some point you have to work. At some point you have a yoga class. At some point you have a birthday party that you have to like stop talking about yourself for a minute.
Lights, camera, bitch, smile.
The problem is when your job is to be miserable about your boyfriend, you leave talking shit about your boyfriend with your friends to go into your job where you're talking shit about your boyfriend with your friends. And then all your like friends have in common is that you all talk shit about your boy. I do think there is nowhere in her life where she needs to hit a mark, as you know, fake it till you make it. And I did. Unfortunately, she has reality TV disease where you are applauded for being pathetic.
Yeah.
Which like means that there's no place to go.
I can't tell you how many times I've sat with my friends after fights with their boyfriends. So her friends are like, enough. Which already just contradicts the thing she said earlier where she's like, we all do it.
She's so funny because this whole chapter is about how she's like, my friends hated my boyfriend just because of the way he treated me, but I would never do that to them. I've watched my friends complain about boys who left wet towels on the bed and boys who have cheated on them, and I bit my tongue.
Especially when one chapter ago, she's like, anyway, so we were in Vegas at their joint bachelorette party, or they were in New Orleans. And I forced them to confront a cheating rumor. And then I like made Brittany stay in this relationship.
Also, that guy Carter that I think she's talking about here was really awful to her. I think he was like fully unemployed, mooching off her, treating her like shit. And so she's like, they should just butt out. I'm allowed to be miserable for years on end. I couldn't believe the audacity of my friend. I was livid.
For some reason, my venting had an expiration date.
Take it down a notch, girl. We are not in a relationship. You are not my boyfriend. I was just liberated from one. Now release me from your insufferable judgment. The Emancipation of Kristen Doute. That's a real quote in this book that she wrote. I will say, you are in a relationship with your friends. You're not in a romantic relationship with them, but there is a give and take, fluid aspect to friendship.
Then she just has a chapter about how sexting is disgusting.
And then she has a chapter about her one night stand, and it was some guy with a blue mohawk, and he wouldn't leave her apartment, and then it turned out he voted for Trump.
And she was like, ew, why didn't you say that before we had a one night stand? In the beginning of that chapter, she says, I don't have one night stands. I just sleep with my friends. And it's just like, okay. And then she goes, maybe rushing into relationships hasn't been so bad after all. If all one night stands are like that, definitely not my style, and I won't be doing it again. You can get to know someone and then sleep with them and then have that not turn into a relationship. Like the two choices are not one night stands with idiots or like codependent relationships with narcissists.
Oh my God, Ashley. Well, then why don't you read chapter 28?
Friends with benefits. Thank God. But like, do you know what? I feel like all dating culture has forgotten about dating. Dating has gotten left out of the conversation.
You did not need to be like, well, it's either a one night stand or getting a dog with the guy I met on Bumble last week.
I feel like people have just forgotten. They're like, okay, well, if you like him, then why aren't you trying to move in with him? And if you don't like him, then why are you talking to him? And it's like, well, maybe you need to find out if you like him, because there is a range of time where you're allowed to like get to know someone as a dating person. So then she becomes friends with benefits, and it's so hard because he's like in love with her. And then she gets into her relationships with girls. She's like, I'm not
This made me so mad.
Gay.
The most detail she gives in this entire book is like this chapter about all the time she's hooked up with girls. And I'm like, Kristen, who do you think is reading this? These guys who don't want to date you? It really was like you felt the way she was trying to turn you on.
I guess I felt like she's bisexual. She calls herself hetero-flexible, and I'm like, okay, it looks like you're like trying to date girls though.
I don't know. She hooks up with two and it's to like impress men.
She says that she hooks up with two with the intention going into it of impressing men and then getting distracted by the girl and forgetting that a guy is even there.
Yeah, maybe she's bi, but I really was just like, whatever she is sexually, she exploits it specifically.
For this chapter.
And then I'm also like, who do you think is reading this? Mostly gay men, Kristen. She has another threesome in this chapter. It's because her boyfriend had sex with her in months. And she's like, well, what if it was a threesome? Oh my God. And then another time she hooks up with this girl and she's like, I'm trying to get this guy who's my boyfriend who hasn't touched me in months to touch me. So I bring this girl home, and then it's very clear that she's interested in me. And then the guy gets annoyed and is like, well, if this isn't a threesome, if this is just you two hooking up, like I'm out. He didn't get it. She wanted me, not a threesome with my boyfriend, but he was so selfish that he didn't feel one night could be about me.
Kristen.
That is a crazy thing to say about having sex with someone else. Ugh, he didn't get it that for once. I just wanted it to be about me, so I fucked this other dude.
She like really, I feel like thinks so little of like herself and women that she like can't acknowledge that an attraction to women exists.
The lady pond is still pretty mysterious to me, but the water's fine and I wouldn't mind taking another dip. So this is a question Andy Cohen used to always ask people on Watch What Happens Live. And for a brief moment in time, I worked at the Gansevoort restaurant, which is where Watch What Happens Live puts people up when they're about to be on that show. And Kristen Doute actually came down to eat at the restaurant and I was her waitress. And I will say,
I can't believe you saved that for page 171.
And I remember she was a vegetarian, which was stressful because she's like, all there ever is to eat is pastas or anything else. But that really was all we had for her to eat. So she got the pasta. And then she tipped me 30%. And when I came over, she was really concerned. She was like, oh my God, but what if you ask me about the lady pond? Like, what should I say? Should I like just be like, yeah, I have been in it. So I do think like whether or not she's bisexual, what she is so excited to tell you. And then we have a story about a time a guy was essentially using her. He was like the perfect guy. He kept coming in and out of her life. He was the golden ticket or something.
The Holy Grail.
The Holy Grail. And then she realized that it never worked out timing wise, which was odd because they would also talk about their schedules. And she was like, wait a minute. He's always asking me to hang out exactly when he knows I'll be out of town.
I guess I don't understand what this was because she's like, okay, the Holy Grail is this guy that you have never actually dated, but he's always been on your like, if timing ever works out, we would be perfect together list. And I'm like, okay, I don't have a list of that necessarily. And she's always like, why is he sending me these mixed signals? Another thing about the Holy Grail is they never ever call. They only text. They sometimes slide into your DMs. And I'm like, what is holy about what you're saying right now? Because this seems like a guy who is uninterested in you.
But I guess he himself is like smart and hot and cool.
Okay.
So it's just like a guy you like that doesn't like you back.
He was a true master of manipulation. In some ways, he's actually the worst of them all. Okay, so that's just like a guy who's the whole package who's keeping you on the bench just in case he like needs to have sex that day.
I guess that is the worst of them all. But I do think at what point is it on you to know that?
To me, it feels like him asking her to come hang out one time when he knew she'd be out of town. It seems actually to me like he wasn't manipulating her to be like, oh, I knew you were out of town. It seems like he cared so little about their previous communication that he forgot she was out of town.
I was just going to say, like, it's very possible that he like doesn't actually care about your schedule.
And he's just like hitting girls up that day. I wonder like what signals he sent that were leading on. Would those signals have been received the same way if she wasn't infatuated with him? Like, were there any signals? Was it all in her head?
It's hard to say. Okay, so then she talks about like becoming friends with Ariana and how she had to apologize and now they're all happy. That you can be friends with your ex and his girlfriend as long as like enough time has passed and you know there's a monetary reason to do it because you all work together. She talks about co-parenting
her
dogs with her ex. Do you have any takes on this, Ashley? Because I feel like you do.
I think that when two lunatic people adopt a dog together, I don't know. I understand her being like, I didn't know how to like say you can never see the dogs again. But then he was like manipulating me and he would kind of use the dogs to like be around me or to like infringe on my life in this way.
I also think she'd be like, I don't know, he came over to take the dogs and 3 days later I was like, you have to get out of here. I do think part of it is you'd be like, no, take the dog and go. You don't say take the dog and do you want to watch football and take a bath?
Like I do feel like they are just too Looney Tunes, so they were not prepared for this situation. But I understand her impulse to be like, well, how could I just be like, you can never see your dogs again? Because I have friends who are co-parenting a dog. And I'm just like, well, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. I can't fathom doing it. Like I said to you specifically, I'm so glad I got Bug alone.
Imagine someone trying to take her. LOL. LOL.
The people clamor for her.
They don't know her.
I guess I am like, I don't know, man. What is the other situation here? You got dogs with a guy you don't like. You shouldn't have done that. And now these dogs shouldn't suffer. And sure, they would probably forget about him if she just said you can never see the dogs again. But that's sad to think about.
The next chapter is about a guy that she like knew in high school and they'd randomly meet up later. And then he got divorced right when she was single and they hooked up and they went on a vacation. And she's like, yeah, it obviously wasn't going to really work, but it was like a fun nostalgia escapism trip. And I was like, oh yeah, I know that kind of guy. It actually made me think of TTPD a lot. Like the guy that's always been the first call when you're single for 10 years and now it's aligned and you're finally able to see in full focus how much this 10-year crush absolutely would never work in a million years. But I will say at this point, we're on page 190 and I'm like, Kristen, I cannot believe you're just naming every guy you fucked.
Yeah.
Like, it's insane. This is an insane concept for a book.
It's So
We're just like still naming guys you fucked. I don't know a thing about you. Why are you so fucked up, Kristen? Tell me anything. Why did you move to LA? How could you have such a nothing book?
And then she talks about how she's taking care of herself. Number 1, crystals. Number 2, therapy. Crystals before therapy.
And then energy healer.
Witchcraft.
Curbing social media. Oh, and then energy healing. She had somebody come to her house. She's like, I bought a really old house, so I had to get the bad juju out. And I'm like, you're the bad juju, Kristen.
And she's like, you don't understand. Sometimes social media is like a really complicated comparison game that has bad vibes.
We know.
And now she is single at 37. Do I still long for a partner? Of course. Thankfully, I'm not jaded. I'm not jaded.
That's a Patreon call out. That was one of the best stories Ashley ever had. Can I say this chapter randomly? I was like, who wrote this for you? Because I agree with a lot of what she says. She says, we shouldn't compare ourselves to other people. It's pointless to envy a life that isn't your own. The best thing you can do with your life is make your own choices and find the happiness that's right for you. You can be single, single-ish, or dating, or actually dating, or engaged, or married, or divorced, or widowed, and still be fulfilled. Do what's best for you.
How do I promise to not hack into my next boyfriend's email account or drive by his place of business and confront his coworker for sending inappropriate texts? I can't. I'm an open book, and he needs to be the same.
I'm pretty comfortable in my own skin these days.
I'm crazy because of all my experiences, all the love and heartbreak, all the happiness and sadness, and the love and the hate. Okay.
When the time is right and my self-love tank is full, the one will come along. Maybe I know him and maybe I don't, but at least for now, the one is me. Oof, Kristen, tough stuff. Ashley, any final thoughts?
This book made me so sad that brain exists inside of a woman.
It should be in a zebra?
Yes. Why not?
How fertile is this dirt?
0. No, 1, because it's a goofy time.
Yeah, I'd say
it's
1.
Goofy slop.
And then how many worm teenies would you like to have with her?
None.
Come on.
3. I went from none to blacked out in 1 single nudge.
She is somebody that I would like to be mutuals with, who I could be like, do you want to come to my party? And we could all just be like, what?
I mean, that's her whole life, is that she has this whole group of friends that she's mutuals with because they're like, she's crazy at parties. And then when they had to center her as like a main character in their lives in order to be on a TV show with her, they were like, we don't like this anymore.
You guys, we love you so much. We hope to see you at our shows. We hope to see you on the Patreon. And we hope to see you at the Moment House.
Totally.
And who do we love the most?
Our 5-star reviewers.